Thank you, Brother Richard, for joining us once again on Behind the Final Call cover story. And of course, we have our wonderful edition of the Final Call newspaper that I know we have a nice amount of information to get into today. Please make sure that if you're on YouTube that you live with us right now, and even if you're not, if you're watching the rebroadcast, make sure that you're liking this, sharing this, and looks like we're going to be scheduling this to try to be regularly right here on YouTube and other places on social media at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So, as you know how we always start this off, so why we are on edition value number 38, paper number 1, October 9th is the date on the paper, and the title is Welcome Back, Minister Farrakhan. Why this title?
Well, first of all, assalamu alaikum, Brother Troy. Thank you for having me. And again, everybody, if you're tuning in, please share, text, come back, and Brother Troy will be taking questions later in the show. This was a very important title for a number of reasons. One, first of all, because the Nation of Islam is coming back to Detroit the weekend of October 14th. This year's anniversary of the Million Man March and Holy Day of Atonement. And not only are we coming back, but Minister Farrakhan and the nation were welcomed back to Detroit. So a few days ago, we had the Executive Council. These are the leadership of the nation, our student minister in Detroit, Brother Troy, and they went to Detroit, had a beautiful town hall meeting with leadership and businessmen and entrepreneurs and educators and politicians to discuss us coming back for this annual observance. We've been to Detroit for our national convention, which is Savior's Day. I think we did it about 3 years in a row in recent years. I think maybe the last 2 we haven't been there, but we did it about 3 years in a row. So that's one, it's true. Number 2, the other thing that's true is that Black America loves Louis Farrakhan.
That's right.
I don't think you heard me. Black America loves Louis Farrakhan. And so no matter what the enemy says, and that's one of the most valuable things about the Final Call and about this show, is that we have the opportunity to represent ourselves. So I want to try to get to this real quick. So you've had this onslaught of negative publicity, lies, propaganda, this flood of negativity aimed at the minister since February. Now imagine that, but actually not since February. Really, very intensely since 1984. So you're talking 20, 30 years now. But despite that, in cities like Detroit, Chicago, Dallas, where I was this weekend, the ministers loved and respected so much. And see, we have to understand, we have to be very careful about defining ourselves, not allowing ourselves to be misdefined, and not allowing ourselves to be impacted by the disinformation and the negative propaganda of others. There's a certain iconic status that Minister Farrakhan enjoys, that the Nation of Islam enjoys. Sometimes it comes out in comedy. Sometimes it comes out in people talking about some of these very iconic things, and we laugh. But the fact that we laugh and we can relate to all of them as Black people says that this is something that is connected with Black culture.
Yes, sir.
So the great Mr. Sharp, as I call him, the broadcaster Shannon Sharp, if you go to the Final Call Facebook page, I think if you go to our Twitter page, if you go to Brother Jesse's Twitter page, you will see a clip from Shannon Sharp, the Hall of Fame, I believe now, a wide receiver or tight end in the NFL, beautiful Black man. And he's wearing a bow tie. Mm-hmm. And then he says, talking to, I guess, Skip Bayless, his co-host, happens to be Caucasian, and he talks about, well, Skip, about 2 or 3 o'clock today, I'm going to be on the corner of, I think he said Slauson and Crenshaw.
Right.
And I'm going to be selling, I think he said German chocolate bean pies and some other banana or some other nut bean pies. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be out there with the Final Call. So if you know anything about and bean pies, well, he started with the bean pies, right? And then at the end of what he said, so Skip Bayless was like, "Wait, I don't know what you're talking about." So
he pretended like he
pretended like he did. So our brother Shannon X Sharp, maybe is what we should call him. He said, Louis Farrakhan and are two of the last real ones remaining. How could you have a man in such a powerful platform make such a statement? If Black America and the Nation of Islam are not intricately connected, and we're part of the fabric of Black America.
Yes, sir.
So no matter what the enemy does with his lies, no matter what he does with his pressure, I was thinking about this. I believe it was Ice Cube's album. Was it which one? Was it Death Certificate? There was one that he did, and he was holding the final call. This was years ago when he was actually making his money making music instead of making movies and doing the 3-on-3 basketball league and all of this great stuff. And he was reading the final call, and he had some brothers in ranks, meaning they were in military lineup and they had their suits and bow ties on, and other brothers up off to the side. I believe it was the great Queen Latifah in one of her songs. Just another day around the neighborhood, just another day around the way. And she talked about the beautiful experience of being among her own people in her own neighborhood. And of course, she had to get the final call and a bean pie.
From the brothers in the bean.
From the brothers, from the brothers in the bow ties.
Right.
Now, if you go back to Beyonce's video Lemonade, there's a brother holding up a copy of a newspaper with Dr. King on the front, and across the title it says, "The Truth." Well, that brother is actually a Muslim who was out with the Final Call newspaper, and that publication, The Truth, is a replica or a representation of the Final Call. So my point is, this welcoming back, we want to tell the truth, and we have to fight this propaganda. We cannot be satisfied watching people attack a man who does not deserve to be attacked, and a man who has protected us. So every time they throw a blow of lies and negativity, we need to throw a two-piece back of truth and representation. So Minister Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, back in Detroit, where we were founded, by the way, in 1930. So there's a whole lot of history and love. We were in Detroit a few weeks ago. Everybody remembers the minister being on stage at the Aretha Franklin funeral and saying nothing. Well, now in a short time, you will actually have the opportunity to hear him speak from Aretha Franklin Park, downtown Detroit. So what used to be known as Shane Park has been named after our dear sister, and I think one of the first people to be able to speak there will be the minister. Now, I mean, just think about that for a minute. Right. That'll be October 14th. God willing, we will have activities that whole weekend. So plan on being in Detroit. In particular, if you're in Detroit, you need to be there. And I would say this, when you have the opportunity to interact with the Muslims at Savior's Day, those who are not in the nation, in particular, come and visit with us. We're not going to tie you up and throw you in a van and make you eat bean pie. But come and visit with us. Come walk among us. Come to our Savior's Day convention, which is in February, because I guarantee you will feel a love, a peace, a joy, a respect that you've never enjoyed. Yes, we don't have no added police presence when we come in the city. Let me say that again. We don't have no added police presence when we come into the city. We police ourselves. And we are people who walk in peace. So we don't have a need for that. And we have the disciplined brothers of the FOI who are trained to deal with issues, and so are the sisters. So we are a model of a community that polices itself because it has a better understanding of, because we rather have a better understanding of who we are and how we should conduct ourselves. Or where did that come from? That came from this man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, back in Detroit, October 14th. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss the overwhelming event.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You touched on it briefly about some of the significance of Detroit. Of course, we know that we consider that our Mecca. If you could, can you just, for those who may not be citizens of the Nation of Islam, can you just talk a little bit more about that significance and how that's our start? Because, of course, you know, Chicago is, many know that Chicago is our headquarters.
Absolutely.
But, you know, Detroit definitely has a big significance.
Absolutely. And if you're black in America, you're already part of the nation.
That's right.
You are part of the Creator's nation. There are those of us who have just learned who we are, so we have gone through a formal process of what we call registering, meaning that we have heard a word, and after hearing that word, we liked it, and we want to get involved in the process of bringing others out of darkness into light. Mm-hmm. We want to be in the process of transforming communities. We want to be in the process of creating businesses like the Foodie Spot, where we are right here in wonderful South Shore community in Chicago, 7350 South Stony Island Avenue. Great food. I heard the strawberry cream cupcake was very good.
That's what you heard?
That's what I heard. I'm not going to go no further than that. Great coffee. But this is an example. So in 1930, the work was started by a man by the name of Master Farrakhan Muhammad, who we believe to be the great Mahdi of the Muslims and the Messiah of the Christians. So that takes a little explaining, but not really. If you go to finalcall.com and you go to finalcall.com and Google him, or if you get the books of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from store.finalcall.com, you can read about this man who taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad only for 3.5 years. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad went to what, the 4th grade in school?
Yes, sir.
A family of sharecroppers out of Georgia. Like many during the Great Depression, they fled from Georgia northward. They came to Detroit, like many came to Chicago, Detroit. They came to Detroit, they lived there. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad heard, I believe actually his wife, Sister Clara, heard this man speak first. And when her husband heard about this man, he had to go see for himself. And it is said that on first hearing this man, this is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, hearing his teacher and the founder of the nation, Master Farrakhan Muhammad, speak for the first time, it is said that when he went home that night, he wasn't the same. One lecture, one word, went home that night, and it is said that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, at the end of the meeting and listening to this man, and you know, people come down and shake the hand of the speaker, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to this man, and you are the one that the world has been waiting for. And the man whispered in his ear something like, yes, but who knows? So that is our beginning. And it's really we could devote hours to this if we get into the history. Very fascinating history of the Nation of Islam, which is our Muhammad Mosque #1. So we start there. If you are able to homeschool your children today, if you have options in education outside of the traditional send your child to the public school system in their building today, if you have more authority over what your children will be taught today, with all due respect, you owe a debt to the Nation of Islam. Because one of the things that the early pioneers, you're talking about the 1930s. So what was it like for a black, Negroes is afraid in 2018. With $1.3 trillion worth of economic power. You've had a black president, you got black senators, even though it's only a couple. You got black members of Congress. You got black police chiefs. You got black police officers. You got black politicians at every level. Doctors, lawyers, whatever you want, you got it. Still afraid in 2018. So what was it like in the 1930s in Detroit? Detroit had race riots and race problems just like Chicago did. So I'm going to try not to keep going around. But we have to understand history. and not be misled to think that the oppression was only in the South and somehow when we went north, we reached the promised land. We did not. In some ways it was better, but our people were stuck in tenements, which were dirty, crowded, sometimes no running water, no bathroom, communal bathrooms, communal faucets. I believe at one point the door to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's home, well, he was known as Elijah Poole then, didn't even have a door. This is the poverty that our people endured in the North, along with the exploitation of other people like Jewish landlords.
Yes, sir.
Not just then, but when Dr. King in the 1960s came to Chicago and he was talking about housing discrimination right here in Chicago and Marquette Park. He had bricks, bottles, bats, and everything thrown at him. And he talked about how the ugly racism of Chicago was unlike anything he had seen. We talking up north racism, right? My point is this. These same conditions existed in Detroit. The Muslims went to work. We are taught that Master Farrakhan Muhammad gave out 25,000 holy names in Detroit. Well, a holy name is an Islamic name, meaning like you've heard of Malcolm X. Well, that stood for Malcolm X Little.
Yes, sir.
Malcolm being the first name given to him by his family, which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we could keep out of respect for her parents, but then the X was in front of the little.
Yes, sir. Yes,
That
sir.
means that, well, where did little come from? We know where Malcolm came from. So the name Malcolm comes from the parents. Where does little come from? Little is connected with the history of our sojourn and slavery in America. Because just like if you got a dog or a horse, when you register them in a competition, and you got to give them a last name, you give them a last name with an owner. So that slave name is connected to that history. So the X is a representation that we are being cut off from that.
Yes, sir.
And we are now being independent. And as we come into the knowledge of ourselves, we go back to our original language, which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us Arabic. J.A. Rogers bears witness in talking about the original Arab being the original black man. So these names then represent connections with God, which we say, and the Bible bears witness, we are descendants from God himself. So we don't carry the names of the creation. Mr. Rivers, Mr. Stream, Mr. Brook, Mr. Block, Mr. Brown, Mr. White, Mr. Dog, Mr. Cat, Mr. Rat, Mr. Roach. We should not carry those names.
Yes, sir.
That's the creation. Since we are from the Creator, we should carry his name. Abdul Salam, servant of peace. Al-Aziz, the mighty. Al-Hakim, the wise. These types of names. So Master Farrakhan Muhammad gave out 25,000 of those names.
Right there, started
right there in Detroit by himself. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad works there. The Muslims are persecuted. He is forced to flee. And if you know anything about Islamic history, check out the history of the Prophet Muhammad, who had to flee Mecca to go to Medina. But that's a whole other story. But just put that under your cap. So there's persecution. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad leaves Detroit, comes to Chicago. This becomes the headquarters for the Nation of Islam, and Islam spreads from this city. We're right across the street from Mosque Mariam, the historic flagship mosque of the Nation of Islam, former Greek Orthodox Church, very beautiful, probably one of the most beautiful houses of worship in the city. But even though he enjoyed and we enjoyed great success in Chicago, as I heard Minister Farrakhan say, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad always had a certain love for Detroit. So Detroit is mosque number 1. Chicago is mosque number 2. So there's something about Detroit and its great history. I mean, if you look at it, the political folks that have come out of Detroit, the cultural and artistic community that has come out of Detroit, the scholarship that has come out of Detroit. So there's something special there. And so coming back, this is why we say we are coming back home. That's where we started, and Detroit loves us. And again, the minister gave out 90,000 free 90,000 free copies. They weren't free to him. Somebody had to pay the printer. Somebody had to pay the printer for them. But they were free because he paid for them and gave away 90,000 copies. This was during the funeral of Aretha Franklin. So I hope that didn't take too long.
So of course,
Like
of course, as a Muslim in the Nation of Islam for a little bit of time, a little bit more than a lot of us, there's always a student minister up in us. So praise due to Allah.
That was just information.
Yes,
that
sir.
was
Yes, sir.
Straight words.
But the thing about it is, of course, people can find out more details about the trip. As
Yes.
you mentioned, the whole Executive Council of the Nation of Islam went there.
Yeah.
Some people had their different questions on why.
Yeah.
Some of those, Allah willing, will be answered in the paper. And more of those as we move into, with actually less than 2 weeks from now, that many of us will be in, less than 2 weeks from now, many of us will be in Detroit. And for those who aren't, of course, you'll be celebrating the 23rd anniversary of the Million Man March. One of the notes that was given to me, student minister Dr. Ava Muhammad mentioned that the minister wanted to draw our attention to the 23rd surah of the Holy Quran, which is the Believers. So a note, and also, and I'm not sure if this, of course, because I never get to really read the paper before. Another important note is that at the venue is that we were told that was an area in which Master Farrakhan Muhammad walked the streets. That is the
Black
area
Bottom in Detroit, which is of course now been redeveloped and turned into a different place. But he started in the section of the city that was called Black Bottom.
So, of course, now that was the cover story, but of course you had a very special trip this weekend that you just got back from, and I think there's a little coverage of that in there. So can you touch on that in that trip?
Well, we had really a great visit to the great city of Dallas. I had no idea that Dallas, did you know that Dallas has a great black history? I mean, great. Did you know that in Dallas they have a street named after Martin Luther King and a street named after Malcolm X, and they intersect?
I saw that on your Facebook
Was that on
page.
Facebook page? It is one of the only, if not the only place where that happens. Well, that's not by accident. Because we know that white folks don't name streets like that. They may name it after General Robert E. Lee, or Stonewall Jackson, or George Washington, or any of these other slave masters, but they don't name a MLK Boulevard and a Malcolm X Street and then have them intersect. So obviously there were some black folks in Dallas that felt like these two iconic men needed to be remembered and honored in their own community. And generally, you know, these streets already have names. And generally, it's been a fight to change the name. But I think it's gotten a little bit better. But just, that's indicative of something. So Dallas has a great black history. As they call it, sunny South Dallas. And we're looking forward to actually, in future articles in the paper, talking about some of that culture, some of that rich history. But we had the Final Call Media and Social Media Conference. And we started last Thursday. We went Thursday, Friday. Saturday was kind of a day to kind of hang out because the place where we were at, St. Martin's, which is a place where you hold different events. The brother there, older black man, I mean, just gave us the place basically for nothing. Brother Victor Muhammad and his lovely wife in Dallas spearheaded the conference, organized the conference. So the idea was that we need to bring black media together to have some conversations, to leverage our power, to look at what we need to do for the future, and also to understand the intricate and intimate connection between black-owned media and the black struggle. So it ended up being great. Cheryl Smith was really a legendary media maker in Dallas, strong sister. She has done radio, she's done TV. She now owns 3 black papers in Dallas. Then we had the Dallas Weekly, which was our co-sponsor, led by Patrick Washington, who was like a second-generation newspaper person. His father founded the paper. Well, not founded. His father basically was the owner of the paper. He's now turned it over to his son. And our brother Jihad Hassan Muhammad works for the Dallas Weekly. He also contributes to the Final Call. Then we had a brother with the Texas Black Pages. So we're just beginning now to have these conversations. We did a lot of stuff online. And if you go to Final Call social media Facebook page, check us out on Final Call Twitter. Over the next day or so, you'll have more pictures, etc. You can go to my Facebook page, Richard Muhammad, and you can see links and such. So it was a great time. We actually pulled in that virtual audience. And Brother Troy, you get the scoop. So look, I had a 30-minute interview on video with attorney S. Lee Mack. This is the brother who was the attorney for Botham Shem John. That's the brother killed in his apartment by the white female Dallas police officer. I had an incredible 1-hour interview with him. So, and that we will definitely get out online as well as in the paper. But all kinds of topics. Did you know that in some places, if a police officer is found guilty of illegally killing, did you know that in some jurisdictions that if the police officer is convicted, the insurance companies, because we know that cities are insured against these types of actions or liability. In some jurisdictions, if the officer is, by Allah's grace, brought to trial, if he's by Allah's double, triple grace, he's convicted, the city insurance company that handles civil disputes or civil arrangements once somebody's loved one is killed unjustly, they don't pay out as much. Listen to what I'm saying. In some of these places, if you take a cop to trial and the cop is convicted, the family gets nothing in terms of any kind of settlement. So what are you doing? Are you setting up now? And Attorney Merritt and I talked about this. He actually, of course, enlightened me about this. So are you trying to force people between a monetary settlement and justice? And Attorney Merritt said with all the cases that he's done, the families have never wanted a settlement. They have always wanted justice, right? So that's one. We talked about how once your son is shot, now the authorities and the power structure come to you, the victim, and now want to make you responsible for making sure that the community stays calm. So now they want you to come out and say something. After your son is dead, you got little chance of getting justice. Now, instead of them accepting responsibility, because 9 times out of 10, they make a strong statement in support of the officer, like they did with Officer Amber Geiger when she first killed this brother in his apartment. No reason, no call for assistance, nothing. So, and a bunch of other stuff. So you got to tune in for that interview. And we're going to do some stuff online. Thank you for editing. And we're going to do some stuff in the paper. And we'll probably do it a few different ways, but a very powerful interview, about 30 minutes. We have Brother Ben X there, one of the social media influencers, talking about what he does. We talked about connecting with youth, and we talked about creating content that's valuable and raising our people up. You mentioned the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Well, you know that we're taught that the devil or the enemy or Satan, and that's a person, by the way. Ain't no red man in no suit under the ground, so you can get that out your mind. Get that right on out your mind, because if the man in the red suit show up, first place he gonna have to go is the unemployment office, because all the work of evil, death, destruction, and deception has already been done by a live human being walking around on 2 legs. So what they have done is they have twisted the narratives, and so excuse me, and so generally before anything else happens, they give a statement in support of the police officer, right? Then like they did in the case of this woman who came to this man's apartment, didn't have no business being in his apartment, There was no call like we've got a 911. There was nothing. She claimed she got off on the wrong floor and somehow another wandered into his apartment and killed him. How does that even happen? So, but that's not the only case in Texas. Attorney Merritt said this is shaping up to be, in his view, the bloodiest year for police shootings. I believe in Dallas was what he was talking about, but he said the bloodiest year. So that's why you need to stay tuned to this show, and you need to read the final call, and you need to stay tuned, because inshallah next week we'll have coverage from the conference, and keep checking us out online. Make sure you sign up so you get the notifications for this show, and you follow the edited version and all of that. Like the final call on social media, follow us on Twitter, because you're going to miss something. You're going to miss something, I'm telling you now. So then after that, I was blessed to close out by delivering the lecture, Sunday lecture, Mosque number 48 in Dallas. But I mean, a really incredible, if you go to Dallas and you go to, all of this is on MLK Boulevard. So you got Muhammad Mosque number 48, you got the Omega Psi Phi House fraternity next to that. Then you got down the street the Kappa Alpha Psi House. That's right. Then down that you got the Delta Sigma Theta House, and then on Saturday it was the big Prairie View Grambling football game. Thousands of black people, and so the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha had they were set up like right on the corner. So I mean, a beautiful expression of blackness and history and culture. So we want to bring you some of that. You're not going to get that other places. So you need to support the Final Call. You need to go to finalcall.com and subscribe. You need to, again, sign up for all of these notifications. You need to spread the word. And I'll just say this. We're looking at 2019 as leap year for the Final Call. Stay tuned and you'll hear about that later.
Praise to Allah. Right there, the hour, it looks like we have a lot of activity. I don't really see any questions, and I see that people have been just sending their love out for the most part. Of course, as you expect, there's always a few haters, but hey, well, that's expected.
Haters keep hating. You know what? I'm going to say to you what God said. May you die in your rage. I didn't say it. God said it. But we're hoping that we can enlighten you and have enlightened dialogue, so that if you're not a hypocrite and you just misunderstand, then maybe you need to visit your local Nation of Islam mosque and study with. So you don't need to be hearing about us from somebody else. All these YouTube half scholars and half wits and all these other people. No, you should, if you're going to disagree with a thing, do your own research. Many great Muslims started out as skeptics. Matter of fact, in the history of Islam, some of the greatest Muslims were enemies of Islam until they got understanding. And when they got understanding, then they became the great warriors and leaders of Islam. So we don't mind you disagreeing with us. That's fine. Disagree all you want. Pull out all your books. Pull out all of your questions. We are not a people who say you can't question us. We say question, and we're taught in our lessons, ask questions and learn all about yourself. So I won't say peace to the haters, but keep on hating. You're going to be all right.
And I see a few things that came up. Someone asked about, will the Final Call ever be translated in Spanish?
Wow, that is like, this is how the God works. Again, Brother Troy, you're getting all the scoops. So, you know, we have a great Latino population in Texas. We have Latino Muslims in the mosque. So Brother Al-Shahid, very progressive young minister there in Dallas, working hard. You know, also happens to be a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. I'm just saying that. But working very hard. He has his own school teaching. I mean, beautiful anyway. But Brother Al-Shahid, the local minister there, and I had this very same conversation. So we are hoping in 2019 to do a little pilot with the Final Call. We may not start off every week in Spanish. We may do kind of a limited edition in some ways. We're not sure if that'll be monthly, bi-weekly, or what that'll be. And right now we're looking at maybe doing some initial targeting in Dallas, Houston, Austin, and Brother Shahid and I were talking. It was another city. We're looking at that in 2019. But you know what makes that happen? The support. See, if you actually buy the final call, if you actually take money out your pocket, or better yet, go to your phone and order the final call online. Or if you make it your business that when you see that brother on the corner, you say, brother, look, how can I get the paper every week? And you set it up where he can deliver it every week. See, then you are funding and making us able to do everything we're able to do. I mean, I hope you don't think in 2018, with all the attacks on the minister, and the attacks on the minister are attacks on us, and attacks on the final call. Matter of fact, some of the haters have even mentioned the final call. Thank you very much. Keep on hating. Keep on mentioning the final call. We appreciate that. Just get the name right. It's not the last call. We're not a bar. It's the final call. Like the train of God is leaving the station and you need to get on it. But anyway, yes. But we need American money to do that. We'll send us some pesos and we'll cash them in.
Right.
We'll, you know. But everything that we need support. We don't beg white people to do for us what we should do for ourselves. And you cannot be independent unless you spend your own money. Just like you can't get the iPhone, the latest one, with the bigger screen, unless you pay money. Yeah, the shoes that you like, even the hair that you like to wear on your head. You can't get it unless you pay for it. We're asking you to make a small investment that will yield a big return. So stay tuned. We're hoping to pilot that in 2019.
Thank you, Brother Richard. Of course, we're still working on getting that campaign together. We love you, Minister Farrakhan.
They need to start. Yeah. And I think we already got a few people. We will do it. Look for some of that. If you get your stuff in, was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, early Friday, I promise you by Lord's grace, we will be running some of your responses next week, but include your name and a daytime phone number, okay, where we can reach you. But we want to start that right away. Already had a brother that said something talking about how he was gangbanging and heard the minister and changed his life.
Well, you're going to exclusive right here. That's where you'll get the extended story. Of course, you'll see that information in the Final Call newspaper as well. We encourage you. Get down to modern time. You can get that digital edition of the Final Call, get your subscription. Or even if it's not for some reason you don't want the digital edition, you can still get a subscription to the Final Call newspaper delivered right to your door. Many people don't know that. And that don't mean because you got it coming to your front door that you can't still support the brother on the street as well. But get it in all forms, all fashions. We encourage you to do that.
The other thing is that we still have so many of our people locked up.
Yes, sir.
So if you got a family member in prison for something like bank robbery, like one of my family members was in for, do you want them to come out better or worse than they went in? So if you subscribe to the Final Call, and we have a special subscription rate for inmates, but I would say get that subscription and send it directly to your loved one, and you can call us at 866-602-1230 extension 200 and get more information. That's 866-602-1230 extension 200 or 773-602-1230 extension 200, 773-602-1230 extension 200, and you can talk to our customer service people and do that. You can order MP3. You can order. Look, did you know that they took Alex Jones off of all social media?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a white guy with a pretty big following and some political influence. You know, he's one of the people that influenced the current president.
That's right.
So I would say it might be wise for us to go back to getting our own DVDs coming from the Final Call, because sometimes I lost.
And you can get those at store.finalcall.com.
That's right. Because sometimes I law starts to arrange things, and if you look on the horizon, you can see it may be good to keep that DVD player handy. Get those DVDs and hold on to them. Get those MP3s that you download and you have. because they are already going after Minister Farrakhan on Twitter. They've already not verified his Twitter account, meaning that now, looking yesterday, now you got all kinds of imposters. At Louis Farrakhan with 3 R's and all this kind of stuff, so they can trick you up to think that you're following him and you're following an imposter. They've already, you trying to use this Alex Jones situation as an excuse or justification to move the minister off. But let me be clear, my minister ain't got nothing to do with that man. Whatever that man does is what he does. That's him and his people. And whatever they don't like about him and his people, that's their business, that's their fight. But the minister has done nothing to anyone. You can't find them committing any crime. You can't find his followers wreaking havoc in his name and saying Farrakhan taught me. As a matter of fact, when we're caught wrong, the people tell us, do Farrakhan know you doing that? I bet Farrakhan, he wouldn't appreciate you doing that. You ain't no real Muslim. You ain't no real Muslim. So we already have a reputation. We already have a reputation based on this man's work of doing good. And when we are found to be other than ourselves, our own people correct us. So support us in the face of this onslaught, man. Don't you want to be part of the Black Liberation Army? Don't you want to be part of the struggle? Don't you want to just be in the fight? I mean, it's like, man, let's get into a good fight with these people. Stop laying down and stop it. We can crush them. God is with us. Let's get up and crush somebody and stop trying to crush each other for no reason except we hate each other.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you next time right back here. Check out social media. Make sure you subscribe to finalcall.com. Well, no.
Go to finalcall.com and you can click on that little
click
tab.
all of those buttons.
Click on that little tab, get that digital edition.
As well as, and of course, you see the link right there, subscribe.finalcall.com. Please click on that right now. You can do it right now. We can wait for you. You didn't do it. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead and subscribe right now. Of course, please subscribe to thecollective9.org.
That's right.
The Collective 9, and go to the website, thecollective9.org. Until next time, assalamu alaikum. Right here, once again, behind the Final Call cover story.
Every week.
Every week. Assalamu alaikum.